following show has been sponsored by Tri-Dot Productions.
Good evening and welcome to UFO Line. I'm Gene Huff here with Bob Lazar. Bob, are you set for the show?
Oh, sure I am.
Back with us as our guest again this week by popular demand is John Lear. Welcome, John.
Hey, thanks, Gene.
Of course, in this instance, popular demand means that John demanded that we help him become more popular. At the end of last week's show, we touched on the subject of God and the switchboard lit up, and so John decided to come back so we could rig God over the coals this week. Now, Bob Lazar and John Lear and I don't agree on many things. In fact, if we only talked about things on which we agreed, it would be an hour of dead air. But I think the one thing on which we all do agree is the conflict between ufology and theology, and probably the lack of the stereotypical omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent God. So I think to start this off, maybe we should tell people what our religious backgrounds are from our youth. John, why don't you go ahead and start off?
I was brought up in Christian Science and went to Sunday school for many, many years, up until probably I was 11 or 12.
Okay, and obviously that's where John got all of his scientific knowledge, was from the Christian Scientists. John, is it true that the Christian Scientists go up and use the Stanford Linear Accelerator, and rather than turn the power on, they actually pray that God will accelerate the particles into the target?
The only thing that was suspicious to me is that my grandmother was in Christian Science, and my mom, although she made us go to Sunday school, she would take us to the doctor, and we were told, that we weren't supposed to tell Grandma what was going on.
I see.
Wait, you were really raised in the Christian Science?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
No kidding. Wait. I have to delve a little bit deeper into this.
I can...
Is Moya still a Christian Scientist?
Oh, absolutely. And
You're kidding
and
me.
my sister teaches in Christian Science Sunday School down in the Valley.
Who, Shanda?
Yeah.
Chandelier.
No kidding.
Yeah, absolutely.
By the way, if anyone would like to give us a call and speak with us about God, or if God himself would like to call us, our number is 731-1230.
I'm sure he's got the number.
Or hit star 1230 on your cell phone. Bob, how about your religious background?
None.
Bob's lying on the air. Go on now, tell us how you were raised.
I guess I was raised Jewish.
And
I'm not exactly sure. I was forced to go through a bar mitzvah.
by the way, I'm offering a $500 reward for any videotape of Bob at his bar mitzvah. And I was raised a Lutheran. I went to a parochial elementary school and was confirmed in the Lutheran faith. I had to memorize an entire book called the Lutheran Catechism and actually spit it back out on command. And
Yeah, see, I could probably say the scientific statement of being.
Wait, how can there possibly be a caller already?
let's go ahead and take it to it. Go ahead, you're on UFO Line.
What do you mean, how can there possibly be a caller? Don't you think anyone's listening? All right, you know how we've all read from time to time, and I've read it too. If the people really knew about all the UFOs and other species, other beings from other planets, it would burst their bubble, and all our theology would be ruined forever. Well, that's ridiculous, because the same ultimate God, divine intelligence, whatever you want to call it, that created us would also have to have created them. So I don't see any conflict there whatsoever. It wouldn't burst my bubble about what I believe about God, just to find out that there's other species on other planets so that they can whiz through the time warp and in saucers or whatever. What has that got to do with God anyway?
Wait a bit. What God do you believe in?
I'm going to say a divine intelligence that created, emanating from this divine creator, emanated everything that we can possibly see, and he operates through us, I guess.
And where did you first learn about that?
Where did I first learn about it?
Right.
I guess as a child, but I wasn't, I'm not steeped into any particular religion, because those are man-made, My instinct tells me that something had to have made me the marvelous creature where I can think things out and rationalize and create, write, come up with ideas that were never there before, that was not taught to me. They just happened.
And where did this God come from?
Maybe it's not for us to know.
Ah.
maybe we're not, if we knew it, then we'd beat God, wouldn't we?
See, the problem is that most of us were taught about religion in our youth, and obviously established religion had been going on for millennia prior to us being born. And I think a very good question is where the original concept of a God came from. Now, whether you believe that God is an interdimensional spiritual God, or you believe that there were actually beings from elsewhere who were misconstrued as gods in ancient times, a good question is where the original concept of a God came from. For instance, would cavemen, what made them think there was a God if there was no established religion?
I was going to bring up some of, like, not aborigines, but people who were brought up in the bush. They have no traditional religion, but yet they know that there's something more than them, and they find something to worship. It's an instinct in man that we know there's something beyond us, and these people weren't taught anything about religion, and yet they just know it. It's built kind of in our DNA, I think. And we just call it by different names. And then men created different religions because they want everybody to believe the way they do. But yet, innately in our bones, we know there's something more than us. It's just born in us. You don't have to be taught it.
I don't think you can draw that conclusion at all, because you were surrounded by religion from the day you were born. It's almost an unanswerable question whether the possibility of a supreme being, someone from elsewhere, that people would worship, that would be superior in all ways, is a natural thought, or as you say, conveyed in DNA. I don't think we can say that, because we've been...
it's in our nature. But are you going along with Zechariah Sitchin's idea? Is that what you're promoting?
Well, it doesn't really matter what idea you go along with. It seems that there was some sort of catalyst. The question is, was there a catalyst that made people think there was a God of sorts historically, or is it a natural thought? When cavemen when they heard thunder and saw lightning in the sky, would they presume that was a god, a superior being, or would they think, for instance, it was a monster?
No, they would think it's something stronger and bigger than them, which for people who are not, they weren't civilized yet or educated, that would equate with something bigger than me. The thunder, like, ooh, it must be something awful. It doesn't matter. To them, in their primitive minds, that was the equivalent of our thinking of God as power or creator. It doesn't matter. It's just more primitive. But yes, it's always been in there, in my opinion. But I'll listen and see what other premises you come up with here.
Okay, well, thanks for your opinion.
Okay.
Next caller. Go ahead, you're on UFO line.
Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, I just got a couple things to say, and that is, recently you've been called by the Lord, and,
On the phone, or?
No.
Oh.
Hello?
Yeah, hello?
No.
I'm just gonna, give a brief testimony, but,
Very brief.
Very brief.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, maybe I'll just get to the meat of the matter. Anything that has to do with UFOs and stuff has to do with the devil. And if you haven't found that out, then you haven't found the truth of the matter. And if you dig deep, you'll find the truth, because God is the entire light. And Satan used to be able to hold the light, but he got removed from his position.
And how do you know that?
God's enlightened me with this knowledge of which is out there, and a bunch of people are telling what's going on in governments and in the world, and it all boils down to good and evil. And if you'll accept it, you'll go out and search for information which will lead to your belief in what I'm now believing. But
I don't think that could ever happen.
Well, I don't think so either, because Satan's the great deceiver, and he's obviously deceiving you, so good luck.
Well, thanks for the call, and I can only say, ain't that nothing. Next call. Go ahead, you're on UFO line.
Yeah, two questions.
Sure.
I don't know which one I dare ask first, because I probably won't get to ask the second. But something that amazes me, I can't even call the Art Bell show, but every night I listen his program in one ear, and yours tonight, and most other nights, whatever else is available for talk. And nobody listens to Art Bell locally.
Well, if you ever heard his show, you probably understand.
No, on the contrary, at least his first half hour, 45 minutes, he's in News House, He watches a lot more of the regular press than I care to, but by doing that, he gives the best, heck of a recap.
John, you know Art Bell. Why don't you give us your opinion on that?
Well, I think Art puts on a pretty good show. Now, I haven't heard it in a long time because it used to be on at like starting at 11, but I couldn't get it anymore because it came over another channel or station that I couldn't get. But I enjoyed being on his program.
He's on right now. I got him in my other ear.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Well, who cares? Next caller.
Go ahead. You're on UFO Line.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Are you talking about belief in God?
Well, we're just talking about the connection between ufology and theology, but yeah, I guess it basically goes to belief in God.
Well, I believe as the ancient Egyptians did that God is the all in all.
Well, that explains it.
Well, the all is it's an essence of being. It's the only essential being that is. And everything else resides within it, and it resides within everything, because everything is in its mind.
Mm-hmm. So you don't believe in God as the stereotypical God who was flying around talking to people out of the sky in the Old Testament then?
No. I think what they call the gods were people that they imagined as superior beings.
Mm-hmm. But in addition to so you do believe that if there is an omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent God, he's certainly not anyone who was interacting with the Jews and the pre-Christians back in the Old Testament?
Well, the all in all can be in everybody, and they can. I think people are limited by their own interpretation of it.
Mm-hmm.
But the light and the darkness that Jesus speaks of is Amen. And he's the first manifestation, or the first concentrated form. And then it manifests as Ra. Ra is the actual manifestation of physical existence.
So now, do the Egyptologists also believe this about Amun and Ra? And
I don't know what they believe, and I could care less.
so you're talking about Amun, the same, like the end of Tutankhamun, the Amun, the
Yes, the Amin, yes.
Right.
And Jesus calls himself the great Amin.
Mm-hmm.
He says in the Bible that all things will be put under the Father, and that then the Son will also be put under the Father, that God may be all in all.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually the basic belief of Christianity, too. It comes from the old belief in Egypt.
So do you believe in heaven and hell, that after you die you go to heaven or hell?
Well, I'm not too concerned with that. I think that's a mental state you put yourself into.
Mm-hmm.
I think you create your own heaven and hell.
Well, how about even after you're dead?
I believe you're reincarnated, or you attain spirituality to where you understand what the spirit is about.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, thanks a lot for your input.
Sure.
Let's go ahead and take another call. Go ahead, you're on UFO Line.
Hi, Gene.
Yeah.
This is Bill. How are you?
Hi, Bill. Great.
Say, I just want to, I have a few comments.
Okay.
I wanted to talk in different terms, but since we're talking about God,
Okay.
well, just for Bob's information, God was in town in October visiting a company that's taken over the test site, and his name is Teller. And he was out. Pardon?
And he didn't even call us.
Right, that's what I was going to ask. Did he call Bob? However, he was visiting out here, talking to some Hungarian physicists that are part of this new organization. That'll be, over controls, Lockheed and Martin.
God. Teller was in town talking to some Hungarian physicists?
That's right.
Okay.
Okay.
Were these guys he had worked with previously?
They apparently are, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Where did you hear this from?
I'd rather not say.
Okay.
It wasn't Lear, right?
No, it wasn't
Okay.
John Lear. It's straight, though. One of the other things, Bob, your project code names you identified back in 89 and 90 to George Knapp?
Yeah.
Project Looking Glass.
Mm-hmm.
I heard this on a couple programs on the television here in the past 2 weeks. And they used it in the context of going back in time. I was wondering if you had any information on that. This Project Looking Glass.
No, not really. As far as I know, they were just looking at using a gravity lensing effect to create a small time distortion. I mean, we're talking about something on milliseconds.
Okay.
Nothing as bold as someone attempting time travel, or as technically infeasible as that.
Yeah, I've got a couple more items here. Did any disc that you viewed out at the test site when you were there, did they have a hexagon turret, or did you notice any with a hexagon turret?
Turret?
Yeah, I'm calling the top the turret.
No.
No.
No, though the subfloor, which separated the first level where the gravity amplifiers are,
No, I'm talking about the top of the craft.
No.
The round circular thing that I call it.
Everything was smooth.
Everything was smooth, huh?
Mm-hmm.
No flat surfaces separating the bottom and the top? About a 3-foot section. Instead of it coming to a point or to sharp edge?
No.
Nothing like that, huh? Okay, when you're inside now, did you get a chance to feel the waveguide? When you're
the waveguide that comes out of the reactor?
The tube?
Yeah.
Did you? What was it, cold or hot?
It was cold.
Okay, how cold?
Just, I guess, cooler than room temperature. I made the same comment about the skin of the craft itself. That's why I said it was metal, because it felt cool, but that was my only observation. It could have been some other exotic material,
But you didn't try and stick your tongue to it, right?
No.
Yeah, all right.
It wasn't that cold anyway.
Yeah, it's insulated too, one other thing. The other item I got is, your small grades that you got in your S4 saucer that test yourself?
It's not my S4 saucer, but yeah.
Okay, well, whatever.
Yeah.
I thought that possibly, you were instrumental in that design, weren't you?
In the design of the craft, yeah. But not in the addition of the aliens.
Also the version of the aliens that were in there?
No. Testers felt obligated to put those in there for some reason.
Oh, testers.
They wanted it just to show scale.
Yeah. I noticed they're putting out an 8-inch version of that little dude that was inside the S4, your disc.
Yeah, I had heard that.
Yeah.
In fact, the president of Tester Corporation emailed us this morning and told us that we hadn't seen it. I guess I hadn't really looked for it. Has anyone seen it in any local hobby shops?
I bought them all out of California.
Oh, out of the little alien models?
I bought them all, yeah.
Tester said no stores have picked them up, that only the hobby stores are selling.
Only the hobby shops, no major chains like Walmart and Toys R Us things like that. Is it a pretty good model? How does it work?
It's not bad. I've been selling them. They've been, buying them.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
Is that all you got for us, Bill?
Well, I got another item.
Well, go ahead.
The other point that I wanted to make, you described the disk drive as being capable of bending space-time.
Yeah.
Okay. And we all know that space-time is the space is interfaced with time. So therefore, I wondered if
space-time and gravity are all interrelated.
I wondered if the operations personnel, during the time that you viewed liftoff, did they have any kind of barricades or anything, or indicate that you shouldn't stand too close?
Well, it was out on the edge of the dry lake bed there. We were inside the hangar. No one was outside.
Yeah, okay.
No one was outside at all. Everyone just lined up by the hangar door.
Yeah, I was just wondering, about some memory loss and that type of thing, if you were close to that distortion field.
No, wasn't close there.
Not that close, huh?
No.
Hey, you got a good man on there, John Lear.
You got any questions for John?
Hey, treat him nice.
Okay, we will.
I spent a short time with him, but he's an okay guy.
All right.
Thanks for your call.
See you later.
Okay. Now,
do we have go ahead, you're on UFO line.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
You were talking about the existence of God?
Well, we were talking about the collision of ufology and theology and its relationship to God, yes.
Well, I was thinking in terms of, I guess theology tries to prove God's existence through faith or revelation or authority. And I know that there are philosophers and some theologians that try to demonstrate the existence of God through the idea of reason. And Thomas Aquinas had what they called the 5 ways in which he gave argument for the existence of God. one of the arguments was the idea of the unmoved mover argument. In other words, that since everything is in motion in the world, there had to be a first mover, which he claimed was God. Another one is the cosmological argument. That says that everything had a beginning and had an end. It comes into existence and goes out of existence. So since nothing can't cause anything else, there must have been at least one necessary thing to cause everything else. And then there's three other arguments, but I wanted to get in the idea of time, the idea of time.
Which we have very little of. Thanks for your call.
Do we have another caller? Okay, go ahead. You're on UFO line.
How you doing?
Good.
Hey, Mr. Lazar? Yeah, once again, it's me, the skeptic of KLAV.
The skeptic of KLAV?
Yeah. I wanted to point out some of the similarities that I've seen between UFOs and holographic projection.
Okay, why don't you do that?
Go ahead. You're on UFO line. Hello?
Hello? Hello?
Oh, I don't think they're there.
Okay, boy. So, now, first of all, whose idea was it to do a show on God?
I think it was Lear's. We have to blame somebody. John, I noticed you brought the book, The Gods of Eden by William Bramley with you. Did you have any citations you were going to...
Here's a couple of real interesting things. The one quote that I like is he says, and for those of you that don't know who William Bramley was, he wrote The Gods of Eden. He says in his outrageous theory was human beings appear to be a slave race breeding on an isolated planet in a small galaxy. As such, the human race was once a source of labor for an extraterrestrial civilization that remains a possession today. To keep control over its possession and to maintain Earth as something of a prison, the other civilization has bred a never-ending conflict between human beings, has promoted human spiritual decay, and has erected on Earth conditions of unremitting physical hardship. This situation has existed for thousands of years and continues today. And he goes on to say that one thing they had to do is create a God to keep control, to keep people fearful that if they didn't do what they were supposed to do, that there would be some kind of retribution.
What I'd like to do is kind of get an idea here with all three of us, is what your current belief is. I know you were raised as a Christian Scientist. No, I'm pointing at you, John.
It's highly unlikely that there is a God.
And okay.
I would say that in the stereotypical Christian Judeo omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent sense that there is no God, and if there is one, I don't think anyone's seen any evidence of him. In other words, if there is a God, I certainly don't think he was flying around parting seas and, hiding behind burning bushes and things like that, playing games with people in the Old Testament.
That was somebody else.
Yeah, whoever, if indeed all of that happened, it certainly wouldn't. Someone who instituted the Big Bang, and I don't know where he was when he did that, but if he did that, I don't think it would be so petty that he would be down there nuking Sodom and Gomorrah because people... Bob and I had a discussion this afternoon that rather it's hard to understand why God would have allowed, if he is who he's supposed to be, why he would have allowed free will and allowed all of the human conflict to the point where he'd have to punish people for being bad
because God works in strange ways.
He could have programmed everyone to be good and never had any headaches whatsoever.
Well, he works in strange ways.
He certainly does.
Right. Why would God have superimposed the tornado belt on top of the Bible belt?
Right. And let's go ahead and take another call. Go ahead. You're on UFO line.
Yeah, is it me again?
Well, only you can say that.
Okay, very well then. I was disconnected. It's the skeptic of KLAV.
Yes.
Yeah, I was going
to have you back.
I was going to start talking about the similarities between a lot of the weirder sightings that you have and holographic projection.
Okay.
First of all, why is it that most of the clearer sightings of the actual craft usually appear in areas that are highly dust concentrated, moisture concentrated, or like ice crystal concentrated, like a Gulf breeze, Nevada, Mexico, Southern California.
Well, you can say that about everywhere.
Swamps, swamp areas.
Are you trying to talk about projecting a hologram?
Yeah, it seems funny that, okay.
Have you ever tried to project a hologram with a laser?
Well, I can see even the minor lasers that we have. Even the minor lasers that we have.
Have you tried to project a hologram with a laser?
No, I haven't, because I don't have the money to build myself a hologram.
I have. And you can't project one into thin air like that.
But you can if you have material in the air that you can reflect it off.
A heavy mist or fog, yeah.
Okay, I'm just saying.
But a hologram is really obvious. It's basically the color of the laser. You can have an argon blue, green, or a krypton laser, or a combination. Yeah, but there's no full color, three-dimension, obvious three-dimensional image without scan lines on it. It's I don't mean to shoot down your idea, but.
And a lot of the sightings in remote areas, who would have all that equipment out there and shine something in the sky just hoping that some hillbilly would drive by and see it? It seems like there's not much of a return on it.
Well, let me go further into it anyways. It's my personal belief, and since I have no proof to give this, and that's a personal belief, but I've seen even some of the more minor hologram technology, and it's pretty good. And I'm sure that if somebody's investing millions and billions of dollars into this, that the holographs can be really good. And funny enough, a lot of them, they seem to perform amazing feats with no respect to inertia or gravity. They disappear and reappear at will. They don't show up on radar. And usually a lot of the photographs and video camera footage of this, they turn out to be kind of almost translucent looking.
Oh, I agree that most of the photographs and sightings are, absolute bunk also. I just don't think that that holograms would explain a lot of that.
Well, see, I called you before and I talk about, okay, I think that this is my personal theory. Some of the craft are being driven because our technology is that far advanced now that we can produce some pretty amazing aircraft. Some of them are holographic technology, and others are hoaxes. And I think if you tie it all together, I don't get me wrong, it's not that I don't believe that there is an intelligent life in space. That would be ludicrous. But I think what we're seeing in the media and what's being projected, and it's funny how you should talk about the connection between God and UFOlogy, because what we're seeing today is like a diversion. It's a scam. If they have all this technology, why aren't they just coming down and saying hi? What can we do to stop them? If they can manipulate time and space.
Well, they're not necessarily motivated to do that. Yeah, Earthlings seem to have this sense of self-importance that we feel they would do that. That would only be if they had just arrived and they wanted to say, hi, we're here and we're your space brothers. There's a lot of information that indicates they've been coming here from millennia, and they are no more obligated to drop in and say hi than you are on a herd of cattle. So, also, Bob Lazar worked in a back engineering program at S4 in Central Nevada on ET discs, and which use gravity propulsion, and they distort space-time and actually do cause, you said they're invisible on radar. Well, actually, the gravity field, and I feel odd saying this with Bob here, but I guess he's not motivated to say it, but anyway, they distort the space-time around the craft, and they do bend light, and so a lot of things that you are claiming could be handled by holograms are true, but there are other explanations, and one, of course, is that gravity does all those things that you're attributing to a hologram.
Well, I could go on all night about the advances of our technologies, but I want to skip to one more point, and that is the connection with God and the UFOs. And to me, what I see is a very strong connection between Eastern philosophy and New Age theology, which we seem to be directed into with everything from dolphin rhetoric to UFOs. And it's almost like a mad dash into crossing between Eastern theology and kind of pseudo-Christian science.
All right. Well, thanks for the call. Go ahead. You're on UFO Land.
Hey, you got a good show going there tonight, guys.
Thanks.
Mr. Lazar, a couple months ago, they showed some wreckage on TV of a supposed spacecraft, and it showed like a 6 handprint. They claimed it might have controlled the disc. Did you see anything like that on the disc you seen?
A handprint?
I think he's talking about the autopsy film, some of the hardware. There was a
I didn't see the hardware part. I saw just the alien autopsy.
I didn't either. I just read about it on the internet.
No, I didn't see anything with a handprint.
How did they punch in numbers?
I haven't the slightest idea. I'd like to know that myself.
Okay, and Mr. Lear, what do you think the spirit world is?
The spirit world?
Yeah.
You got me.
Okay, thanks.
It's the liquor store, I think.
Okay, bye.
Go ahead, you're on UFO line.
Hello? Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
What is time?
It's 11:35.
Thanks.
Next fellow.
Okay, so
okay, so anyway, John, were there any repercussions about your Groom Lake report last week?
Well, indeed there were, Gene. As a matter of fact, a certain colonel screamed, and I quote, "Find out where that little son of a gun is getting his information." Sorry, Colonel, but you'd be surprised how information slips through Gate 700. And speaking of Gate 700, here's a tip to all you test site workers who are asked to remove your watches, jewelry, and necklaces and other metallic objects before entering certain black areas. It's not the jewelry or valuables they're worried about, it's your watch. If they let you take your watch to work, you'd wonder why it's always wrong by 2 or 3 hours when you get home. And hey, here's a quick physics lesson for all you physicists that don't get to go up to Groom Lake. What is the smallest component that makes up all matter? It's an SMU, or singular mass unit. Negative or positive charge ions combine to an SMU to make up and down quarks. For instance, the up quark is made of an SMU and 2 positive charge ions, and a down quark is made up of an SMU and 1 negative charge ion. The up and down quarks make up the neutrons, protons, electrons, and neutrinos. And what about the rest of the standard model with their charm and strange and top and bottoms? That's all BS. And the answer to the age-old question, what is the speed of time? The answer is, the speed of time is inversely proportional to the amplitude of the gravity flux. And what is the theory of cognitive dissonance? Cognitive dissonance is the mind involuntarily rejects information not in line with previous thoughts and or actions. And to wrap it up, here are some of the little gray alien jokes going around the cafeteria at Groom Lake last week. What do they call an ugly female on Zeta Reticuli?
We give up.
A greyhound. What type of mustard do the Greys use on their hot dogs?
Oh, I couldn't guess that one.
Grey Poupon. What are the 2 most common surnames on Zeta Reticuli?
Primer and Pewter.
Yeah, you heard that one before. What's your favorite author?
I haven't the slightest idea.
Zane Grey. All right. And finally, what's the first thing that goes through your mind when you meet a Grey? A brain implant. And that's the Groom Lake Area 51 report for December 29, 1995. John Lear, Bob Lazar, and Gene Huff wish you a very happy New Year to all of you at Det 1. Bob?
I like to introduce a new term into the English language. Everyone's familiar with homonyms, words that sound the same but are spelled differently, and synonyms, words that mean the same thing. The new term is a Learonym. A Learonym is something that sounds true but isn't. So just go ahead and write that in your Webster's Dictionary where it belongs.
You know, those jokes reminded me that John told me a story about him having a dream last week that he died and he went to heaven. And when he went to heaven, St. Peter met him at the pearly gate and was showing him around heaven. And as they were walking around, they ran into George Adamski, and John said, "George, I've been dying. I literally have been dying to talk to you. Were those actual photos of E.T. craft that you took, or was that some sort of bogus setup?" Adamski said, "No, we made all those up. There were no actual E.T. craft." And John was disappointed and just kept on walking. And lo and behold, he ran into Dr. Alan Hynek, and he said, "Dr. Hynek, what was all the hidden information in Project Blue Book, and didn't you really have actual alien information to convey to Steven Spielberg when you were a consultant on Close Encounters of the Third Kind?" And Hynek said, "No, really, there was nothing to any of that. I just took it to make the money as a consultant, and I never saw any evidence of ET visitation whatsoever." So St. Peter kept showing John around heaven, and finally they ran into God, and John ran up and said, "God, please tell me, certainly, aliens can't be the only life in the universe." And God said, "No, really, John, they are. All of the rest of that is just everyone's imagination. God's children are totally confined to the earth." And disappointed, John walked away shaking his head, and he said, "Man, this conspiracy is bigger than I thought." If you want to give us a call, dial 731-1230 or hit star 1230 on your cell phone. Let's go ahead and take another call. Go ahead, you're on UFO line.
Yeah, why'd you cut me off?
Who are you?
I'm the one you cut off. What, did you forget already? What's the basis?
You guys had asked what
What's the basis for any conflict between ufology and the concept God?
What is the basis for
And
it?
is it your purpose to ridicule the belief system of other persons?
Yes.
You're facetious.
Okay, thanks for the call. So, what do you guys think the people, and again, I was raised a Christian and had big questions, and it seems like with all the holes in the God story, people seem to think that God, in his stereotypical form, tests people's faith, that a baby is born with brain cancer and dies a slow death, which drains the family emotionally, financially, and then at the end of all this, they can still have, it literally strengthens their faith in God because they were tested. It seems like that is an unreasonable scenario, since if God made everyone, there was no reason to make everyone worthy of being tested. So anyway, let's go ahead and take another call.
Which is probably the same guy, which brings up the point that if he didn't exist, it would have been necessary to invent him, right?
Right. Go ahead, you're on UFO line.
I didn't invent him, but it's a great show tonight, and I've called in before. I appreciate what you guys are doing. I think it's great that there's a format on the radio for this, and it's long overdue. And tonight I wanted to ask Mr. Lazar.
Oh, no.
I know he hates talking on the radio, and he hates being on the show, but he's a voice in the darkness. That's great.
Well, go ahead.
What I'm wondering is, in the dish that you worked in, did you see any evidence of it at all, any type of air filtration device or anything to purify the air inside?
No, nothing at all. I didn't see anything that looked like an air vent, a screen, anything that would indicate that there was any airflow anywhere.
In fact, a lot of people who have heard, Bob's story, and they think that since they were able to fly these discs around the dry lake bed 6 or 7 years ago, that certainly they must be taking them to the moon and Mars and elsewhere. And other than the propulsion, which Bob worked on, there are a lot of other problems in navigation and the life support systems and the things you're speaking about now.
I kind of figured that, and the more I hear about these things, the more I'm convinced that all they really are is just minor shuttlecraft to go from a big ship down to here.
They may be.
Because I don't see how you could possibly traverse the distance of the galaxies in such an uncomfortable manner. I mean, I don't care if you're a monkey or a human or if you're evolved from a lizard.
If you could cover great distances in a short time, you don't need bathrooms.
What if you get stuck somewhere in between?
Well, then there's a big problem.
Okay.
Well, Bob have like an intergalactic AAA.
Right, exactly on the spot. Bob, allegedly those 59-foot craft were capable of interstellar travel, though. That was the allegation, anyway. Right?
Yeah, it was.
I mean, Bob read that. He didn't take one for a spin, so.
Did the ones that he worked on, had they been retrofitted with, the one you were in? When you worked in there, were you in there on your own, or was there a team in there with you?
No. I wasn't even allowed to go to the bathroom on my own.
I kind of figured that.
Yeah.
The other people that you were working with, were you all working on the exact same thing?
No. It worked on the buddy system. There were just two people at a time worked on a specific thing. The guy I worked with, his name was Barry, and we worked on one particular part, another group worked on another particular part, so on and so forth, and the groups did not have communication between them.
And you were kept segregated while you were...
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And I imagine that's true with every worker.
It's very stifling. It's bad science, really.
It sounds pathetic.
Yeah, well, it's the military taking control over everything.
It sounds like more than the military. Well, thanks for the opportunity to speak on the radio again.
All right, thanks for the call. Tonight we're speaking about the conflict between CIA. Our guest is John Lear, and Bob Lazar is with us, and I'm Gene Huff. And if you want to give us a call, dial 731-1230 or hit star 1230 on your cell phone. Let's go ahead and take another call. Go ahead, you're on UFO line.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about what you were talking about a few minutes ago. What's your best guess of how far these crafts are coming from?
A very long way.
5 light years, 50 light years, or a million light years? No guess whatsoever?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I've heard things, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they're true.
Well, he read in briefing reports that
Gene interprets my
since he's holding out on you, that these crafts came from Zeta Reticuli. So what is that, around 40 light years, somewhere 38, something like that. And
but I mean, I have no proof that that's the case. So
right. And Bob also did not know or was not told or shown what the parameters were of a jump, quote unquote. You know, if you distorted space-time to a destination, for instance, I don't think, Bob, you weren't led to believe that they could have a giant jump like over a span of 20 or 40 light years. Didn't you say it was successive smaller jumps?
No, I said I didn't think it would be an unbelievable distance like that, just because of the energy density required to distort space to that degree. So I think it would have to be a relatively localized phenomena that was artificially created and repeated at a high repetition rate.
And of course, the requisite to that would be the fact that gravity propagates instantaneously, because if you were at the mercy of the speed of light or electromagnetic waves, you could never focus the gravity on a point, distort it, and jump there faster than you could fly there at the speed of light. So obviously, for all that to be true, gravity must propagate instantaneously, right?
Well, that's an arguable point, but
for that to work, it must be that way.
Not necessarily.
Because it distorts time also?
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
So let's take 40 light years. How long would a round trip take?
I don't know. See, we don't know. We've tried to figure that out before because we don't know what the recycle time is on the amplifiers.
I thought it was 12 milliseconds.
You thought it was 12 milliseconds?
That's what you said.
I think we were trying to come up with
if it was 12
number.
milliseconds, and if each jump was 3 AUs, it would be 60 hours. That's what we said.
What about the life expectancy of the visitors?
I have no knowledge of that at all.
It depends where they land. If they land down south, it's probably about 10 minutes.
Okay, well, thanks.
Hey, thanks for the call.
Oh, man.
So anyway, do you think these people are going to want to kill us for talking about God?
We haven't got really much God talk in.
All right. Of course, there's nothing in it for us. I mean, nothing would be better than if all of the God stories were true. And
so you don't believe them?
No. In fact, as you know, I don't. Not only do I not believe the God stories, I don't believe there's any afterlife. Not that there's anything in it for me if there isn't. I hope there is. This is an instance where I hope I'm wrong. Nothing would make me happier.
So you don't think there's any devil or anything like that first caller that was all...
No. I mean, the devil is the lamest of all. I mean, I can at least see someone hoping for a God, but they blame everything on God. They blame, if something good happens, they give God credit, and if something bad happens, they say he was testing their faith. I really don't even know why there was a need for a devil. They blame everything on God anyway. Let's go ahead and take another call. Go ahead, you're on UFO line.
Yeah, I got a question for Bob.
Go ahead.
Don't you have a question for John?
Hey, Bob, it's Jeff. Just saying hi for my mother and Jay.
Jeff who?
Nina, Jay.
Oh, that's Jeff.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I have a question for you, just for an excuse to be on the radio. If the spaceships go up into space, do they have gravity in the space? You know, do they need seatbelts or what?
If the spaceships go up into space...
Inside the craft.
Yeah, inside the craft.
Totally cool.
That I don't know. You know, I don't know if there's a localized gravity field that's, leaking from the reactor or how that...
So you think they can control gravity inside and outside the ship?
I really have never put any thought into that at all. I spent... I was just... spend my time thinking about how the craft is propelled. I really never thought about...
Didn't you say that inside the craft that people would be, the occupants would be in total equilibrium, therefore they wouldn't need, there wouldn't be gravity, there wouldn't be G's in the turns as perceived by an observer?
Yeah, but would there be a localized gravity field? That I don't know. I never even really spent much time thinking about that.
Well,
but there's no seatbelt, so...
Well, I guess it was an interesting question then, right?
Well, to some degree, yeah.
All right, well, nice talking to you, Bob. I'll talk to you later.
Thanks for the call. Okay, so anyway, Bob, you just got a letter today from Zechariah Sitchin asking if you'd like to ask him any questions about any of his books. I know when we met him a few weeks ago, you had gotten a copy of the Gods... Was it the Gods...
Gods of Eden.
No, that's William Bramley. It was Genesis Revisited.
Genesis Revisited.
we were both.
Yeah, John's book is...
Sorry, we went to outer space for a second there. So have you read much of it? And if so, what do you think?
I haven't finished it yet, so...
Zechariah Sitchin is really...
But I do find the book really interesting. I do lean towards believing Zechariah Sitchin.
Sitchin has been raked over the coals on the internet lately by the typical guys. Of course, no one is beyond attack. I mean, people attack Einstein, they attack Carl Sagan. There's nothing.
They even attack me.
No, believe it or not, nothing is sacred on the internet. But I think the one point that people miss is that people are satisfied. A lot of people fall back and say, "Well, I just don't know," and that's an easy out. I mean, Sitchin has correlated a lot of historic worldwide information, and I look at all of his books as saying, well, what if? Why did civilizations have to evolve to a certain point and then destroy themselves, and we find the residual evidence lying around, and we just say, well, I don't know. I think a lot of guys aren't willing to admit that they've got some preconceived notions. A scholar signed on recently, a guy who is an authority on Mesopotamian writings and Babylonian writings and things of that sort, and he started off by pretty much saying that people that believed in UFOs were really kind of nuts, and there was no documented information at all about UFOs, so that was his starting point. And I think people like that need to open their minds up a little bit. We're not demanding that God doesn't exist. We're just saying it doesn't make sense, and it's certainly curious, as stated. The switchboard is lit up. Let's go ahead and take some more calls. Go ahead. You're on UFO line.
Yeah. Do you guys believe in the unified field?
The unified field theory, maybe?
Yeah. Do you guys believe that there is a unified field?
Bob, why don't you take that one?
You mean are you talking about the unified field theory?
Yes.
That all
energy
physical forces are interconnected in some way? Yes.
Yes. Then you believe in God.
Well, if you want to call that God, that's okay.
Well, all right. Take a look. How much energy do you think it takes to run your brain?
I really don't know.
Very small amount. If all the energy in the universe, if you're capable of walking and talking and thinking, then how can you say that all the energy in the universe as a unified field can't have those same properties? Only at a far greater length. Just from a physical standpoint, God must exist.
Why?
Because you exist. Because the minor amount of energy that makes up your body, that makes you run, is capable of all those things. The massive, incredible, infinite amount of energy, the unified field, can't be capable of those things.
It's not the energy itself. It's not the energy itself that's capable of that. I mean, you can look at look at a thundercloud. A typical thunderstorm has, the power of several exploding hydrogen bombs, and there's a huge amount of energy. It doesn't display any intelligence. The level of energy has nothing to do with that.
But the universe itself does.
Well, so what? There's a bunch of. In what way? There's billions upon billions of stars which are fusion reactors burning end on end, throwing matter out in the universe, stars exploding, all that. There's energy all over the place in all different forms and every way you can imagine. It's not displaying any intelligence to me. It's following physical law and doing things that occur naturally.
Yeah, there is. Some people make an argument that it's fate or some sort of destiny as opposed to life being a series of chemical reactions, and I don't think anybody's got any actual proof either way. It still goes back to the same thing as where did the concept of God come from? What was the catalyst? Were there people flying it down out of the sky and people said, well, obviously that's a God, they're smarter than me, they can fly, they can do everything I can't do?
Take evolution, for example. I mean, evolution is taught as fact, and yet it doesn't even follow a scientific law. It doesn't even follow scientific method.
It doesn't follow scientific method?
Absolutely not. First of all, nobody was there to observe it. We haven't observed it happening. All we've observed is adaptation, but we've never observed.
Well, first of all,
they take archaeopteryx.
First of all, it's the theory of evolution. Is the proper term for it, and it doesn't have to be observed.
But since there's a missing link in all of the kingdoms, which is stated in the Bible but not stated in evolution, they use archaeopteryx like that's a missing link, but it's not. There's missing transitional forms.
Boy, if you want to talk about missing links in the Bible, this will be a 3.5-hour show.
And that
is the worst reference you could possibly.
Yeah, I think evolution reflects that there may have been an external catalyst at somewhere along the way. Whether that was God or not is questionable.
But the kingdoms are created individually in the Bible.
Right. Well, actually, you have to examine where the stories in the Bible came from, and if you do take a look and do some research on that, you'll find that a lot of the Bible stories in the Old Testament are actually a synopsis of much older stories from older languages, from Sumerian, Akkadian, that's certainly Babylonian, and then they made it to Hebrew and German and into English. So by the time you or I mean, I don't know, you could be a scholar or something, but by the time the typical American read a Bible, it had been distorted greatly from Hebrew, and a lot of those, the story of the flood is much older than is attributed to the writing of the Old Testament. So a good question.
That, of course, is a question of faith, though, because you got to. The only way you
That's not a question of faith.
No, you either believe that it hasn't been changed or you can't. I mean, that's the whole basis of the Bible.
Well, there's evidence that it has been, so it's tough to ignore the evidence.
Of course it's been changed. I mean, one of the things I agree with Zachariah Sitchin is if you don't read Hebrew, you haven't read the Bible.
This is true, and I do understand your point on that, but the concepts and what you're supposed to receive from it are the same if you have faith in it. And like I said, that's always going to be debatable because it's a matter of faith.
Well, when you require faith, it's just like bringing another dimension into an argument. Really, there is no argument.
You can't get into
All right, well, thanks a lot for your input.
Right,
okay. Go ahead, next caller, you're on UFO, and if you'd like to give us a call, 731-1230, or hit star 1230 on your cell phone. Go ahead, caller.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, hi. I didn't know that was me. I just have a postscript, and it's sane and it's rational. The suggestion kind of is that the reason I or anyone would believe in God is because we were kind of taught it as a child, or we read it somewhere, whatever. And yet, about 8 minutes ago, you, an adult, not a child, said you lean towards believing Zechariah because you read it in his book, and it's based on like Sumerian tablets, which were also written by men. Would you explain to me what the difference is between my hearing about something as a child and believing it, and you, as an adult, reading something and leaning towards believing
we're going back to where the concept of God came from. What Sitchin's information says that there were beings coming from elsewhere, and this is where the concept of a God came from.
And the Bible says A, and he says B. So why do you believe one more than the other?
One has facts to back it up.
Why is Sitchin more reliable?
Like I said, one has facts to back it up.
Well, what if neither one of them are reliable?
That is correct, but I'm surprised an adult would say you lean towards believing something, and you're an adult, and yet you're putting down someone because they believe something because they believe as a child.
What exactly did you say that you were leaning towards believing, Bob? I don't even remember.
One of you said it. You said, I lean towards believing, Sitchin. And they were based on old Sumerian tablets. Well, those were people who made those tablets. Mere human beings that made those tablets.
And mere human beings wrote the Bible.
That is true.
Right.
And that's why I'm saying you admitted.
Well, because I'm saying the Bible doesn't follow any logical progression whatsoever in the Sumerian writings.
And the Sumerian writings have some scientifically verifiable information also. And so you have to examine where the stories in the Bible came from. You're attributing the Bible.
They were inspired.
Oh, that's some
Sumerian tablets were inspired.
Yeah, inspire this. Next caller. Go ahead, you're on UFO line.
Yeah, I got a quick question for John Lear.
Yeah.
Back in 1989, when you were the MUFON state director, you and I and another individual were out in the hills out near Blue Diamond. You had us looking for a secret doorway out in the hills.
Boy, this doesn't surprise me.
Do you remember that, John?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the guy's name.
He owes you gas money for that.
No, I was just wondering, John had thought that maybe we had the wrong area and that he was going to continue to search
No, it was the right area, and the guy's name was Lou Terry, and he's the one.
Right.
He's the one that came up with the vortex, the vortex theory. Yeah. And there was 4 vortexes, and one of them was at Groom Lake. One was right where we were. One of them happened to be over my house.
And of course, the only real one is in your toilet.
Well, John, at the time you said you had believed him, and you thought you might try to look around for that, and I never heard if you ever found that.
No, we went out that once or twice, and we never found it.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Well, we're kind of running out of time here. We want to wrap up.
We can take a couple more calls.
No, we can't.
Yeah, we can. Go ahead. There you go. Go ahead. You're on UFO line.
Am I on?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I had to call back because the previous 2 callers really irked me. I've had classes in the history of science, magic, witchcraft, and religion, and these people need to take some serious anthropology courses. And if University of Las Vegas offers them these people need to sign up, and they need to listen. And they need to learn their history.
Well, what are you
get it
speaking
straight.
about specifically, the origin of the Bible?
The origin of the Bible most definitely came from other religions. If you look at other religions...
Absolutely. It's a lot of the people I find that are what I call Bible pounders really know nothing about the origin of the Bible.
They really don't. They're pre-programmed into what other people want them to believe.
Right.
And
they're guilted into it also. It's difficult to keep questioning the Bible. In fact, when we met Zechariah Sitchin, we asked him how he got involved in trying to find out where the Old Testament stories came from, and he said he had actually found, what was it? They were reading Genesis 6, and he had found what he thought was a mistake when they came to the word Nephilim, which meant gods, plural. And he stood up and told the teacher that he had found that. And what did the teacher tell him?
They kicked him out of class.
They got him to shut up and sit down, and that was when he was 10 years old, and that's what started his quest for trying to find out what was really going on.
That's how you find the truth. You must ask questions, and that's why we need people like you guys on the radio.
A lot of these are very good people, attorneys, doctors, people from all walks of life.
Sure, well,
leave it up to the church, feeling that certainly they're being given a fair shake from the church, and of course that's another story also.
That's true too. In closing, I just wanted to say briefly that if you look at the world's religions, though, you will find a common denominator in many stories and in many beings that are sort of half God, half men beings. There's Vishnu, Muhammad, Jesus. I mean, there's probably 20 or 30 of these different people.
Right.
My personal opinion is these were probably plants. And that's all I have to say.
Cut you off, but we're out of time here on UFO Line. Please give us a call back next week. Now, if we've offended anyone, we apologize. If there is a God, and if we have offended him, I'd like him to go ahead and take this opportunity to strike John Lear dead.
John?
The preceding show has been sponsored by Tridot Productions.